Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is History Under the Cat, where we bring the plastic road to life and uncover the incredible journey that reshaped human civilization. Today, we begin an epic story called Pacific Island, Early Sea Voyages. In this series, we'll explore who were the first people to explore the Pacific Ocean, the mysterious Lapita culture, how ancient sailors carried entire community across the sea, and how humans began to settle on one of the most remote islands on earth. But before we begin today's journey, let's briefly revisit where our previous journey ended. In our previous episode, we explored the story of the Clovis people, one of the earliest known culture in North America. These Ice Age hunters crossed into the America through Bering, a frozen land bridge that once connected Siberia and Alaska during the last Ice Age. Armed with their famous Clovis spear point, they hunted giant animals like mammoth, mastodons, and ancient bisons. But the world they lived in was changing. As the climate warmed and the ice age came to an end, many of these ancient animals began disappearing. And as a result, the Clovis culture slowly faded, leaving behind one of the greatest archaeological mysteries in early America's history. While these hunters were adapting to life on land in North America, another group of humans were preparing for something even more extraordinary. They were preparing to conquer the largest ocean on earth. Imagine standing on a wooden canoe in the middle of the ocean. All around you stretches an endless blue horizon. No land, no compass, no maps. Only the wind, the waves, and the star above. Yet thousands of years ago, ancient sailors could travel thousands of miles across open ocean and still find tiny islands scattered across the Pacific. To understand how they achieved these incredible feats, we must travel back nearly 5,000 years ago to the shore of the Southeast Asia. Most of the researchers believe the ancestor of Pacific Islanders came from Southeast Asia, particularly region around Taiwan and the northern Philippines. These people belong to a language family known as the Austronesians. The Austronesians were remarkable for one reason above all else. They were masters of the sea. Long before Europeans began exploring the Atlantic or the Indian Ocean, Austronesian sailors were already traveling between islands using sophisticated boats. Their vessels were not simple dugout canoes. Instead, they built double-hulled canoes, where two long wooden hulls were connected by beams and platforms. If you have ever seen a modern catamaran, the design is very similar. These designs made the canoes far more stable in rough ocean waves. These vessels could carry an entire family, along with the animals and crops needed to build a new life on distant island. For example, every voyager often carries pigs, chickens, dogs, taro plants, yam crop, and coconut seedlings. In other words, these journeys were not short fishing trips. They were carefully planned migration into the unknown. By around 1600 BC, archaeologists began to see evidence of a fascinating culture spreading across the island near Papua New Guinea. This culture is known as Lapita culture. The Lapita culture is most famous for their pottery. The pottery was decorated with intricate geometrical design created by pressuring small toothed tools into wet clay. These designs form patterns such as triangle, circle, zigzag lines, and occasionally stylized human face. To archaeologists, these poetry fragments are extremely valuable because poetry survived for thousands of years. Researchers can trace the movement of Lapita people simply by following where these poetry pieces appear. And in many ways, these poetry fragments act like breadcrumbs across the Pacific Ocean, marking the route of ancient explorers. One of the most fascinating discoveries related to Lapita culture were made in Neoma, Vanuatu. At this archaeological site, researchers uncovered a cemetery that was nearly 3,000 years old. But what they discovered there was very unusual. In several graves, the skeletons were buried without their skulls. Later investigation revealed that the skull had been removed after burial. In their place, archaeologists find rings made from conch shells. Researchers believe this may have been part of a ritual connected to ancestors' worship. In many Pacific cultures, ancestors were believed to guide and protect their descendants. And it is possible that Lapita sailors believed the spirits of their ancestors helped them guide them across the ocean during dangerous voyages. Life on Pacific Island was not always easy. Many islands were tiny coral atolls with limited land, limited fresh water, and limited food source. When population grew too large, resources quickly became scarce. Communities then faced a difficult decision, whether to stay on the land and risk famine or set sail across the ocean in search of a new land. Imagine the courage required to make such a decision. Packing your family into a canoe and sailing towards a horizon where no one knew what existed. Yet generation after generation, Pacific Islanders did exactly that. Between 1500 BCE and 900 BCE, Lapita sailors expanded rapidly across the Pacific. They reached islands that had never been inhabited by humans before. Places like Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa. This region is known today as remote Oceania because of how isolated these islands are from any major landmass. But reaching these islands created a new challenge. Because once explorers moved further east, the distance between islands became even greater. Navigating these enormous distances required a level of skills that still amaze scientists today. Because these sailors had no compasses, no maps, and no instruments. Instead, they relied on something far more powerful, their understanding of the nature itself. And so, from the shore of Southeast Asia, the ancestor of Pacific Island began one of the most extraordinary journeys in human history. Armed with little more than a wooden canoes, courage, and an intimate understanding of the sea, they pushed into an ocean so vast that even today it humbles modern sailors. Island by island, wave by wave, the Lapita people carried their family, their tradition, and their knowledge into the unknown, slowly laying the foundation of the culture that would one day become Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia. But this is only the beginning of the story. Because discovering new island was only possible thanks to something even more remarkable, a navigation system so advanced that sailors could cross thousands of miles of open ocean without maps, compasses, or instruments. They navigated using the stars. They read the language of the waves, and they could sense the island hidden far beyond the horizon. In the next episode, we will uncover the secret science of Polynesian navigation and discover how these ancient wayfinders turned the Pacific Ocean into their highways. Until then, remember something remarkable about our species. Human beings did not conquer the world with strength only. We did it with curiosity, knowledge, and the courage to sail into the unknown. I will see you in part 2 of the Pacific Island Early Sea Voyages. Until then, stay curious and keep questioning history.